So when you log into JobsEQ, you can come to this homepage here, and all of the data within JobsEQ are grouped into different analytics, and then those analytics are grouped into different sections in this My Tools page. So we'll go into some of these different sections on this My Tools page, and then we'll go into some of the analytics that might be helpful for you. And you also can change this uh, view from the grid view to the list view, depending on which you prefer. But we have the demographic section, which has some different demographic information like age, gender, race, ethnicity, if you're interested in that. We also have the education section, which has some different information about post-secondary institutions within your region, like your institution, and then also the skill information and training and retraining. We also have some industry data if you wanted to look at data by industry. Then also the occupation section, which has some different information about occupations within your region, including occupation employment and wages and demand for different occupations within your region. And then we also have the reports section, which has some different reports, ready-made reports that you can download as a PDF or a Word document. So that is where you can pull a lot of different information at one time, but you can also dig a little bit deeper into these other analytics to see some more specific data as well. So I won't have time to cover everything in this 2 hours, but I will try to cover some of the analytics that might be helpful for you. And the first one I want to show you is Occupation Snapshot. Occupation Snapshot is just a really great way to see more information about the occupations that your students could be going into, including what kinds of wages they might be getting or if there is a need for this occupation in the future. An Occupation Snapshot is in the Occupation section of the Alt Tools page. So if we click on Occupation Snapshot, it will go to the analytic. And then we can click on these three horizontal lines to open up the query window if that's not open already. And then you can also click the lock icon to lock this window in place. So here is where you can choose different regions to look at or different occupations to look at. So for example, we can look at a single county or state or MSA here. We can also look at specific ZICTAs or zip codes as well. We also do have the York Technical College service region built into JobsEQ. So if you type in your technical college, you can see your service area, which is the three counties, York, uh, Lancaster, and Chester counties. But you can also find that here by clicking on the three dots and then clicking Preview Region. So then you can see what's included within that region you had selected. You can also create custom regions that are groups of other groups of counties or groups of zip codes, and then use that here in Occupation Snapshot as well. But I'll just use that your technical college for that service region if that's okay with everybody. And then we can also look at different occupations here. So if you have a specific occupation that your students might be going into or that you might want to explore with your students, you can type that occupation or occupation group in here. You can also use total all occupations to see all of the occupations within the region. We also have this magnifying glass where you can explore different occupations. So the stock occupation section includes some different occupations that you can choose from. And then you can also click on any of these arrow icons to further drill down to become more and more detailed for these different occupations. We also have the occupation clusters section, which has some different pre-built occupation groups already built within JobsEQ. And they relate to some different CTE or career technical education clusters if you wanted to look at a group of occupations, as well as some different occupations related to occupation groups, including associate's degree or bachelor's degree. So for example, if we're looking at the associate's degree level, this includes the occupations that have a typical entry-level education as an associate's degree. So if you wanted to look at all of those occupations, you can also choose this associate's degree BLS group. We also have some different other remote occupation groups, including occupation groups related to remote jobs, service jobs, white collar, blue collar jobs that you can also look at. Another option for looking at different occupations is entering a program here. So if you wanted to look at counting, for example, the accounting program, and the students going into accounting, but they're not really sure what occupations they could go into with their accounting program. You can type in accounting and the occupation groups with program in front of them are occupation groups related to programs. And you can see the occupations that are linked to a specific program in our SIP2SAT crosswalk. So if I click run here, we can see the occupations that are linked to the counting program in our SIP2SAT crosswalk. So some career pathways from the accounting program to some different occupations that students could go into, such as accounting and auditors, tax preparers, credit analysts, and more. So there's a lot of different occupations you can choose from here, or different options you can choose from to look at different occupations. Is there a specific occupation we wanted to look at, or occupation group we wanted to look at? Or should I just choose one?
Anybody have any preferences?
Dental comes to mind. Dental assisting, dental hygiene.
Yeah, we can use
Love it.
dental. So we can do a dental assistant program. Does that sound okay? Okay.
Yeah, that's perfect.
So you can use the dental assistant assisting program, or you can also look at a specific occupation such as the dental assistants too. And then we can also choose the stock level to look at. So are you very familiar with stock codes at all?
Not at all, personally.
Okay,
I don't even know what it stands for.
that's okay. So SOC stands for Standard Occupation Classification, and each occupation is classified to a 6-digit SOC code. And then each of those occupations are grouped into 5-digit codes with similar characteristics. Those 5-digit codes are grouped into 3-digit codes with similar characteristics. And then those 3-digit codes are grouped into 2-digit codes with similar characteristics. So the 2-digit codes are those broadest groupings of occupations, and it includes things like the health occupations or service occupations. They're very large occupation groups. And as you get more digits, it becomes more and more detailed. So I'll use the 6-digit SOC level to see the detailed occupations that are linked to this dental assisting assistant program. Then I clicked run already. So here in the rows, we can see the occupations that are linked to the dental assisting assistant program. And that includes dental assistants and health specialty teachers post-secondary. And then in the columns, it's broken into 3 sections: the current data, historical data, and then also the forecast data. So in the current section, we can see current employment for each of these occupations. So here, there's 448 dental assistants working within your service area of those 3 counties. And the mean annual wage is $48,300. So if students are going into dental assistance, you can see also the mean annual wage here is $48,300. And you can choose between mean and median annual wage with the wage type section in the query window. So if you'd rather like to see median wages, you can choose median as well. You might also want to look at the unemployment and unemployment rates for each of these different occupations to see if there's higher unemployment rates or lower unemployment rates for this occupation. So here for dental assistants, there's 11 unemployed dental assistants living within the service region of those 3 counties. And the unemployment rate is 2.0%, which is low, a little bit higher than that for health specialty teachers post-secondary. But if we go down to the bottom row, the total all occupations row, this shows the data for all those occupations together. So if we're looking at, for example, this total all occupations row, there's 157,942 people working in any occupation within the York Technical College service region, and the unemployment rate is 4.4%. So the unemployment rate for dental assistants is a little bit lower than the average for the region. So we can see a little bit more about the unemployment rates. We can also see some information about the uh, current need for these occupations through the online job ads. So this online job ads column shows the number of online job ads that were active in the last 30 days for each of these occupations. So for dental assistants, there were 15 online job ads that were active sometime within the last 30 days for the service region. But if we click on this blue number, we can also see those specific job postings here. So we can see those job titles, some different employers that those students, if they go into dental assisting, some different employers that they could work for, as well as the locations of those job postings, when it was posted, and if it's still active on the website, when it was removed from the website, and then any wages that were pulled from the job postings. We
Do
can
you know
also,
where they where is it pulling these jobs from?
so this comes from over 45,000 different websites, including job boards and staffing companies, and also a lot of individual company websites. And we do try to deduplicate the job ads and only show those unique job ads too. And then we can also dive a little bit deeper into each of these job postings by clicking on the blue title, job title. And you can see here the job description for that job posting. And then if it's still active, you can click View Original to view the original job ad and apply to. So if you are working with some students that are graduating, you can also export this too. So you can export this to Excel, Word, or PDF. And if you export this, it includes everything in the table, but it also includes a couple other columns, including this URL column. This URL column does not require JobsEQ login, and that will take you to the job description. So if you are sharing this with students or want to share this with students, you can export the table of job postings and share these links directly with students too. And this is also where they can apply to. So this is one way to see the employers that might be hiring your students and some different job postings that are available or at least active in the last 30 days.
That is so awesome, Jessica. I love that.
Yeah.
So I have a question. So it's something more generic, like an associate's degree in human resources or business or something like that. How can a student kind of figure out what opportunities would be available for them with those degrees?
So you could look at a specific program like that you said the business. Um, so you could look at a broader occupation group if you'd like, or a specific program.
Maybe human resources? And can you specify something with the associate degree level?
Most of jobs that you wouldn't be able to focus on just the associate's degree level.
Mhm.
Um, we do have a couple analytics that break it down by education level, including occupation diversity, which I can show you, and it provides some more information about how many people are employed within that occupation and education level. Um,
Okay.
but there's not much about it there.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So, for example, we could look at human resources management program, and it gives you some different occupations linked to that program or some career pathways from that human resources management, personnel administration program to some different occupations here too.
Okay, that's helpful. I see something that says human resources assistance, so that might be a level that our students could possibly qualify for.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And we could look at the typical education level for each of these occupations too in occupation diversity. So we'll go to that one next too.
Okay, thanks.
Uh, so I'll stay with this one just so that because I will use this one in the next analytic, if that's okay. So we can also see the historical change for each of these occupations to see if they have been a growing occupation or a declining occupation in the past. So right now this is a 5-year history, but you can change the number of years you view with the historical years section in the query window. And you can choose between 1 and 10 years for this. So if you wanted to see a little bit further out into the past, you can change this to 10. Or if you wanted to remove the effects of COVID, and you may want to change this to just 1 or 2, and to see that historical change over those number of years. But I'll just use the last 5 years in this case. And if we're looking at that human resources assistance, the employment has decreased by 28 workers over the last 5 years. And the historical annual percentage change for those human resource assistants is negative 5.0% or negative 5.9%. Whereas if we look at the human resources specialist, that has been a growing occupation over the last 5 years for the region with the historical annual percentage change of 2.4%. And for each of these, you can also click on any of the columns headers to sort it from highest to lowest or lowest to highest, so we can quickly see which occupations that are linked to this human resources management program have been growing the fastest or which ones have been declining the fastest over the last 5 years. Besides seeing how those occupations have changed in the past, we can also see how they are forecasted to be in demand. So if there is a need for these occupations in the future, uh, so right now this is a 1-year forecast, but you can change the number of years you view with the projection years section in the query window. So if you want to see a little bit further out into the future, you can change this to 5 or 10 or just anywhere between 1 and 10. But I'll just leave this with 1 for now. So we can see the total forecasted demand for each of these occupations. So if we're looking at those human resources assistants, 9 human resources assistants, except for payroll and timekeeping, are forecasted to be needed in the next year within the service region. And that is the sum of the next 3 columns, the exits, transfers, and employment growth. So these 3 columns should sum up close to this total demand number, but it might be slightly off depending on rounding. So the exits are the demand in new workers just due to workers leaving the workforce for things like retirements or for going back to school and leaving the workforce or raising a family and leaving the workforce. So of the 9 human resource assistants that are forecast to be needed to be trained in the next year to fill the need, 3 of them are forecast to be due to uh, people leaving the workforce for things like retirements. Transfers are the demand in new workers due to workers changing major occupation groups. So, for example, this is moving from a human resource assistant to a construction worker. There are very large occupation changes, and this would be the number of workers that are forecast to be needed to be trained to fill or backfill those positions. An employment growth column shows whether this occupation is forecasted to expand or decline over the next year in this case. So if we're looking at human resource specialists, for example, it's forecast to grow by 15 workers over the next year, whereas human resource assistants is forecast to be about steady over the next year. Then we can also see the forecasted annual growth rate column here too. So we can click on this column to sort it from highest to lowest or lowest to highest as well. And you can also export this to Excel, Word, or PDF or an image. If you do want to share this with students, you can export this and give that to them. And I know we went through a lot of different definitions here, but we do have this question mark icon at the top, which has some different helpful resources for you. This includes some different video tutorials that are available for the specific year analytic grant, as well as a help documentation section here. So if we click on this help documentation section, this will go to the help page for occupation snapshot. And here we do have a little bit of a description of the analytic at the top, as well as some technical notes for sources of the data within this analytic. And then also definitions for each of these columns here too. So if you do have questions what the unemployment rate is, or what the, the forecast columns are, like the total demand column or the exits, you can find those definitions here too. Or if you do have additional questions as you are working through this analytic or other analytics in JobsEQ, you can also click the live chat feature to ask an economist or mathematician intramural question, and we can quickly help you get an answer to your question too. So occupation snapshot can be really helpful for just looking at an overview of these occupations that your students might be going into, including the employment and wages or the need for these occupations. If your students aren't really knowing what occupations they want to go into, you can also get a broader occupation group, such as the associate's degree BLS group, or use total all occupations if you want to look at all occupations. But for example, this associate's degree BLS group will be occupations that have a typical entry-level education as an associate's degree. And if you'd like to see the occupations that are forecast to grow the most, we can click on this forecasted annual growth rate column to sort it from highest to lowest for that forecasted annual growth rate. Now we can quickly see which occupations that have a typical entry-level education as an associate's degree are forecast to grow the most. And these might be different occupations that you might want to look at too. I'll go back to that human resource management program. So this occupation snapshot is a really great analytic to start out with, but is there any questions with occupation snapshot right now?
I have probably a dumb question. So is this more student engagement or staff using it to assist students? Like how is this traditionally used? Would our students have subscriptions or be able to access it?
Your students probably won't have access to this, so this would be more geared towards you as career advisors, and you could work with your students or export these tables too.
Okay, all right, perfect. Thank you.
We do have a student-facing feature that is available. It's called Career Concourse, and I can show you that, but it is an add-on, so it does cost a little bit more. Um, but I can show you that student facing version too
Okay,
here.
thanks.
Not a dumb question, Angela. You've asked fabulous questions.
Thanks.
Yeah, definitely. But any other questions with occupation snapshot? So for any of these occupations, you can also see a lot more information about the occupation. This can be helpful if your students are exploring different occupations. So if we click on one of these, such as this human resource assistant occupation, we can see a pop-up window with some different analytics that we can run with for this specific occupation to see more information about this occupation. But if we go into occupation profile, this provides a lot of information about this occupation. So here we can see a description at the top about this occupation. So human resource assistance, what it involves, as well as typical entry-level education and typical on-the-job training here. So the typical entry-level education for a human resource assistant, except payroll and timekeeping, is an associate's degree. But there are some people who are working in this occupation that either have above or below that occupation level. And as you can find that here in this educational attainment profile. So it looks like 12.2% of the human resources assistants within your service region have an associate's degree. But there's also 41.9% of those human resource assistants have a bachelor's degree. And also there's some that have higher than that. There's also some people that are working as human resource assistants that have just some college no degree, which would be that certificate level or lower as well. So you can see some different education levels for people who work in these occupations, in this occupation, as well as regional post-secondary programs linked to this program or to this occupation, and the schools that offer and confer awards for this program. So here, the administrative assistant and secretarial science general program is linked to this human resource assistance occupation. And you can see the number of awards or completions in the 2024 academic year as well. And that can be helpful if your students may want to go into higher education levels, uh, if there is some different programs linked to this occupation at a higher level too.
So this is essentially showing that at York Tech, we have in this field, we had 21 graduates, I guess recently, or annually about 21 people graduate in this field.
Yeah, so this would be the 2023 to 2024 academic year because this is from coming from the National Center for Education Statistics, and that's the latest of it available data.
Okay.
And this is also awards. So for people who are getting uh, 2 degrees at once or a double major, they would be counted separately twice,
Mhm.
once for each program that they have. Um, so it doesn't necessarily match up to the number of graduates, but it's close here.
Okay. Thank you.
Uh, then we also have this wages tab here, where you can find some more information about this occupation and the wages for this occupation so that your students might be getting. So you can see the mean entry-level and experience level wages for this occupation. So the uh, a mean wage for human resource assistants is $46,700, but then you can also see that entry-level and experience level wages as well. You can also see wages by industry for people who work in this occupation. So for human resource assistants working in the warehousing and storage industry, they make an average annual wage of $51,100. But if they worked in the employment services industry, they might make a little bit less at $43,800. You can also share this directly with students by clicking on this export button, and you can export this to Excel, Word, or PDF. So if you want to share this, you can export it to a PDF, for example. It will include everything from this uh, pop-up window here. And this is something that you could share with students directly. It includes those definitions and the education levels, wages, as well as some attributes that are needed for this occupation, and then also some apprenticeships that if there are any available too, and link to this program or to this occupation. So this can be helpful if you are wanting to help students explore a specific occupation. But any questions with occupation profile?
I was just gonna say that I love that like industry wages piece because a lot of times I tell students like this they have departments for this in every industry and I feel like they don't know what that means. Then I try to like name some stuff, but like seeing it broken down like that, I think will be really helpful for them.
Definitely. Awesome. And speaking of that, we do have another analytic called Industry Occupation Mix, also in the occupation section, that has some more information about uh, those wages and also employment broken down by occupation and industry. So if we're looking at industry occupation mix, and change the distribution type to industry and select a specific occupation here, like that human resource assistance. And then we can see the industries that employ the specific occupation as well as the wages. These wages should be the same as what you saw in occupation profile. So we can see that human resource assistants they work in multiple different industries like the management of companies and enterprises. And there are 15 human resource assistants working in that management of companies and enterprises. You can also see the wages for that industry and occupation combination, as well as the demand for the industry and occupation combination. And then there's also 6 human resources assistants working within the warehousing and storage industry within your service region, so on.
And what additional information do we get if we click on like management of companies and enterprises? What additional information do we get?
So that will bring up a pop-up window where you can explore more information about this industry. So for example, industry snapshot will take you to an analytics similar to occupation snapshot where you can see more information about that industry. So it will just be specific to the industry, but this is one way to explore a little bit more about the management of companies and enterprises industry.
Right, thank
What
you.
is that industry diversity? That that's interesting because our building construction trades was telling me that their advisory board was saying the other day that there's like concerns about women in construction due to like a national incident that happened. And so I think that that's kind of like a talking point that's coming up a lot that could be helpful to know about.
Yeah, so industry diversity is um, related to that. So if we go click on industry diversity, that does break the industries down by different demographics. So if we wanted to look at it by gender, we can select the demographic option as gender, and this will break it down, the industries down by the number of male versus the number of female people working in this industry. So in this case, the management of companies and enterprises, but we can change this to construction if we like. And we can see the male versus female breakdowns here too. For some of these, there's NAs. This could be related to uh, this is related to the source data. This comes from the quarterly census or the quarterly workforce indicators. And for some of them, they don't disclose the data just because it might provide too much information about certain people working in these industries, especially if there's not very many people working in these industries for your region. But you can see the breakdowns for example, the other heavy and civil engineering construction, how many are female versus or male versus female, and also the wages as well.
Thank you so much. That separations could be voluntary or involuntary separation.
Yes, that would be uh could be voluntary or involuntary, I believe. And if we go to the help page, we can see more information about what that definition is. Um, so it's just the number of workers whose job with a given employer ended in that quarter. So it could be voluntary or involuntary.
Could you show really quick how you got to those definitions? I'm sorry. It was a quick click. It's just the, okay.
Yeah,
Question mark, obviously. Thank you.
if you yeah, so if you click on that question mark icon, then go to the help documentation. That's where you can find those help pages for those definitions for any analytic table. And that can be really helpful too. So industry diversity does have data broken down by industry. So demographic data by industry, you can see it by gender, education, age, race, ethnicity. But we can also see some information about demographics broken down by occupation as well, which I can show you in a little bit. Was there any questions with industry diversity or industry occupation mix before I move on? So another analytic we can look at is occupation diversity. So this is where we can find the number of people that are working in an occupation broken down by different demographics like age or gender or race. We can also see the educational attainment of people who are working in this occupation. So I'm going to go back to the human resource program. Here within the display type as chart, we can see this information broken down in charts. Um, but if we change this to table, this provides a little bit more information. So we could look at it by gender, for example, and see the number of people that are working in these different occupations broken down by different gender. So, for example, human resource assistants. You can see there's 22 human resource assistants that are males working within the region, and also 105 females here. So you can see that broken down by age, gender, race, ethnicity. We might also want to look at the educational attainment and educational typical entry-level education for these different occupations. So if we go into the education training requirements, here we can see the occupations that are linked to this human resource management program and the typical entry-level education for the uh, uh, these are specific occupations. So for most of these, the typical entry-level education as a bachelor's degree. We can also see this human resources assistant has typical entry-level education as an associate's degree. So if you wanted to look at several different occupations and wanted to see what the typical entry-level education is, you can find that here in this occupation diversity and education and training requirements category. If you wanted to focus on several different occupations, such as, for example, all of these occupations, you can also click on the checkboxes on the left-hand side. And then click Create Group to be able to create a custom occupation group on the fly for these occupations that you want to look at. And you can just type in the name of your occupation group. So we'll do this. You can also share this with other people on your JobsEQ license if you want to. I'll click Save to save this. And this can show you some different analytics you can run with this occupation group. But if I go back here into occupation diversity, might have to refresh the page in order for it to come up. So now we can just focus on those occupations, in this case, the ones that have a bachelor's degree as typical entry-level education. So if you are wanting to focus on specific occupations, that is also an option, is to create a custom occupation group and then use that in analytics throughout JobsEQ too. I'll go back to that program occupation group here. So besides seeing the typical entry-level education, we can also see the educational attainment of people who work in this occupation. So here we can see the, even though the typical entry-level education is an associate's degree for the human resource assistants occupation group, we can also see the number of people that have above or below that education level within the service region. But occupation diversity can be really helpful if you are wanting to see the people working in specific occupations broken down by age or gender or race. Or you can also see the education and training requirements or the educational attainment of people who are working in these specific occupations too. But any questions with occupation diversity? So I have been using the service region for uh, the analytics so far, but you can also customize the region that you want to look at to focus on maybe another group of counties or group of zip codes, or maybe you wanted to focus on a region based on a radius or a drive time from your student's address. To just focus on those occupations or the need for those occupations within that region. So to create a custom, you'll have to create a custom region for that, but then you can use that in analytics throughout JobsEQ. And to create a custom region, go to Custom here on the left-hand side of JobsEQ. And this is where you can find all the custom regions that you had created or ones that were shared with you. Here you can also, this is where you can create different customizations like occupation groups or industry groups if you'd like to. But if we're wanting to create a custom region, we want to create a new custom region, we can go to New. We'll have to name our custom region.
Sure.
Or technical college, custom region. You can also share this custom region with other people on your JobsEQ license just by clicking on the share this region box. So if all of you want to share your use a if all of you want to use this custom region for a project together, one of you can just create this custom region and click on the share this region box. Then everybody else just has to type in the name of the custom region into an analytic like occupation snapshot or industry occupation mix. We can also have the custom region status here. And then we have, so the custom region status is set on draft mode. You click save and it will change to ready. And then we also have the region resolution here. And for the region resolution, this is the building blocks for custom region. So here we can see a county is for the region resolution. You can build custom regions based on counties. You can also create a custom region based on ZICTAs. ZICTA stands for zip code tabulation area, and it's similar to zip codes. So you can also create a custom region based on ZICTAs as well, or zip codes. And so I'll go back to the county regional resolution. And there are different options for creating a custom region here on the left-hand side of this map. One option is just to select them by clicking on them. So you can click to select. You can also type them in with this type region option.
Sorry that the winter's got your throat a little bit. If we need to look at a few things and then give you time back so that you can heal, totally can do that because you've shown us a lot of good things.
Uh, Thank you, but I think I'm okay. You can also look at, for example, Lancaster County. So if you just wanted to focus on those two counties rather than your entire service region, that is also an option that is available for you. Another option is to create a region based on a radius. So if you wanted to look at the demand for specific occupations within a 30-mile radius of your student's address, that is also an option that is available for you. Um, so you can customize it for just your student too. So for example, you can do a 30-mile radius from address, latitude, and longitude, or click a point on the map. I'll just use the address for your school that I found, but you can also use an address or latitude and longitude for your student's address if you'd like. So this shows a 30-mile radius around that address, but we could also, for the regional resolution as county, any county that touches or intersects this circle will be included in entirety in the custom region. So all of this county will be included, or all of this county will be included, or all of this county will be included in entirety in the custom region. So it might be a lot bigger than your circle, but if we had selected SICTA regional resolution, Now, any ZICTA that touches or intersects this circle will be included in entirety in the custom region. So all of the ZICTA will be included, or all of the ZICTA will be included, but it might be a lot smaller than if we had selected county region resolution. So that is an option. If you wanted to create a custom region based on radius, you may want to use the region resolution as ZICTA, so be more granular and closer to the region you had selected. Another option is creating a region based on a drive time. So if you wanted to look just at a 45-minute drive time around a specific point, because maybe your students will only work within that 45-minute drive time of their address, for example, and then at a 45-minute drive time, and then use an address or latitude, longitude, or to click a point on the map for that central location, such as that address of your school. And then you can also choose a specific time of day for your drive time. So you can look at peak commute time or non-peak commute time, or just use average time of day. Then we can click run to run this. So this shows that 45-minute drive time around that address. But again, with the regional resolution as ZICTA, any ZICTA that touches or intersects this orange spot will be included in entirety in the custom region. So all of the ZICTA will be included, or all of the ZICTA will be included. So if we do want to create a custom region, we can save our custom region. So rename this your technical college 45-minute drive time. Click save. Once you have created a custom region, you can also click on region preview to see the preview of the region. So you can see what ZICTAs or what counties are included within your custom region. And then you'll be drawing data from when you use it in an analytic. You can also click on Run Analytics to see some different analytics that you can run with custom regions. So it's a quick way to go into the other analytics. So if we go back into Occupation Snapshot, so rather than using that service region, we can use, for example, the 45-minute drive time to look at a different region. You can also just type in the name of a custom region that you had created or one that was shared with you to be able to use it in analytic. Depending on the size of your custom region, it might take a little bit more time to run. But then we can also focus on just specific occupations just to see the demand and employment and wages for within that specific region. So if you wanted to look at a different region besides the service region or a specific county, that is also an option, is to create a custom region and then use that within JobsEQ as well. Is there any questions though with creating a custom region or using that in analytics?
Yeah, that was helpful. I'm glad you went back because that's what I was thinking. What would the HR jobs look like now that we're including the Charlotte area? So that's kind of cool.
Uh, yeah, definitely. So that is also an option that is available for you too, if you wanted to explore different regions too.
If there's like something specific, what I'm thinking about, I'll just tell you what I'm thinking about because that'll make more sense. Is utility line worker. We're having there's not, Duke Energy's not hiring that right now. And so I have a couple of students looking for jobs and I'm like, I have no idea what that would be adjacent to. If we put like utility line worker as the occupation, would it show like other jobs or it would only show like that specific field?
So that would, most of JobsQ like occupation snapshot would just show that occupation. But we do have another analytic called willing and able that lets you see some different analytics that they could also move into. So we can choose the line worker. We have to find an occupation related to a line worker.
Maybe lineman. Sometimes they call them linemen. I have no idea.
We can also use the search bar at the top, type in a title, see some occupations linked to that.
Maybe electrical?
Yeah,
That's smart, Angela.
so there is a program for line worker.
Yeah, it says electrical power line installer.
Yeah, so that,
Ooh.
that would probably be the one. So we can use the line worker program to see what occupations, so electrical power line installer and repair, which is what you said. So we'll use this occupation. So we can go into willing and able. And we can enter the electrical power line installer and repairs, an occupation that they would likely go into. And we can also see some different occupations that are related to this electrical power line installer and repair, uh, and some different occupations that these electrical power line installer and repairs might be willing and able to go into. So the yellow dot represents the electrical power line installers and repairs. And the horizontal line represents the 10% pay cut from the average wages for the electrical power line installers and repairs. So if they want to go into this occupation, they may not want to take an occupation that's lower than this line, um, that has significantly lower wages. All these other blue dots are some different occupations they can go into. The ones closer to the right-hand side are ones that don't require as much retraining. So they have similar skills and knowledge and attributes to the electrical power line installer and repair. Whereas the ones on the left-hand side require a little bit more retraining. So the skills and knowledge and attributes are uh, more different than the electrical power line installer and repair. So those students, those electrical power line installers and repair want to go into a different occupation. These ones in the blue section, the willing and able section, might be some different uh, occupations they may want to go into. Things like commercial divers, but if they are willing to take a pay cut, they could also go to insulation workers, excavating and loading, machine dragline operators, crane and tower operators, segmental pavers, and so on. So we can see this graphically. We can also see this as a table version too. And we can see those occupations and the attribute gap. So that's the gap between the knowledge and attributes between the electrical power line installer and these other occupations here. So the smaller attribute gaps will be easier to move into. We can also find the employment for each of these occupations, unemployment rates, demand, and wages too. So for electrical power line installers and repairs and students who have this occupation or going to this occupation, these are some different occupations that they might also be willing and able to go into too.
That is so cool. And that'll be so helpful because I'm like, I don't know anything about IT or line worker or whatever it is. And I have no starting point besides Google. And then that's so broad that this really will help narrow that down. Thank you.
We also have within willing and able this attribute gaps section here. So we can say the electrical line worker, the electrical power lines installers as their current occupation, and then their target occupation is this one, this installation workers. And we can see which attribute gaps there are. So looks like a lot of these are positive here. Um, if we could, if we want, we could also look at a different occupation. Maybe one with a larger attribute gap like the carpenters. To see which areas they may want to get a little bit more attribute knowledge or knowledge. So here, the ones on the yellow or the red side, these are ones where they may want to do a little bit more training to go from the electrical power line installer and repair to a carpenter. So things like math or building and construction, administrative, public safety and security. Um, these are some different attributes or knowledge that they may want to expand on if they want to go from that electrical power line installer and repair to the carpenter too. We're definitely using the willing and able section here. Can be helpful for looking at what other types of occupations they could go into if they are having trouble finding electrical power line installer and repair occupation and roles. Any questions with willing and able? So there's a couple other analytics I do want to show you. Skill gaps can also be helpful. And this is looking at skills that they could put onto their resumes or uh, on their resumes. We wanted to look at a specific occupation. We go back to the human resource assistant. We can enter a specific occupation here. We can see more information about the skills and where there are some skill or certification gaps. And this compares the skills that are listed in job postings to the skills that are listed in the online profiles or LinkedIn profiles to see where there are some gaps or supply deficits or supply surpluses. So on the left-hand side, there's a supply deficit. So there are more job postings that list this skill than there are candidates that have the skill. And this is specific for the human resource assistants within your service region. So here, if we're looking at Microsoft Excel, word processing, or manufacturing, these are some different skills that there is a shortage, a supply deficit of. So if students put these skills onto their resumes, that might make them a little bit more marketable for employers seeking this specific occupation. Um, so they can use Microsoft Excel, word processing, or manufacturing. They may also want to beef up these skills to make them also a little bit more marketable too. Whereas on the right-hand side, there's a supply surplus. So there's just more candidates list these skills than there is job postings that list the skill and request the skill. And also changes display type to table to see this more information about these. So we can see the number of candidates versus the number of openings, job openings that have each of these skills. So you can see where these skills are and where these gaps are. And this also provides some more information about what skills or what certifications students going in this case in human resource assistance, what skills they may also want to have and put on their resumes too. Um, but any questions with skill gaps?
Now, you may be getting to this because I'd want to maximize it. And I may not remember everything like that we've gone over here, but is there some easy access? Like if I need to like remember how to do this, like where do I go for that? Where's the continuing education on this?
Yeah, so we do have the video tutorials that are available for you. So if you go to the help and resources from the homepage, for example, we go to help, we go to the help documentation. Is our general info page where you can find information about navigation here, and then also some general resources, general information like data sources, methodology notes, classification systems. We do have some video library, the video library here where you can find all of the video tutorials we have in JobsEQ, like getting started with JobsEQ, or the most common, most popular analytics, or also video tutorials for any of these other analytics here too. So that can be helpful for some continuing education and exploring some different analytics. Uh, we also have this Discover section here. So if we look at, for example, this education, this gives you some different options, different things that education clients like yourself might want to do. And it gives you different options for analytics that can be helpful for each of those things that you may want to do. So, for example, if you want to visualize workforce, economic, and demographic trends on a map, you can go to Maps. And if you go to Maps, click on Go to Maps, it will take you to Maps. Or, for example, if you wanted to review occupation data to support academic or career planning, it also tells you to go to Occupation Snapshot. So that's a couple options for looking at and exploring within JobsEQ. Or you can also use the live chat if you do have questions or information about where you can find specific things or if it is available in JobsEQ. Or you can also have additional training sessions too.
Thank you. And my other thing, if you're gonna get to this, that's perfect. But I keep seeing what if somewhere, and I'm just like, what if what's that? So if you're gonna get to it, that's perfect. But I'm just curious about it.
So I can go into what if. What if is for if an industry is coming into the region, if there is enough labor available. So that's in the industry section. So what if is for if there's a business coming into the region, like a manufacturing firm or a specific manufacturing firm, you can enter that industry here, and then we say maybe it's a manufacturing firm coming into the region, and they want to hire 1,000 people. So we can enter the firm size as 1,000. And this will provide some different occupation that they are likely to hire or need to hire for this incoming firm. And also if your region has enough candidates for each of these openings too. So if there is enough labor available for an incoming firm. Is this something that you might be interested in?
I like the idea of it, but I feel like there's like a different version that would be beneficial to us that's like the reverse. Um, I'm just trying to think of how to say it. Like, do they have this, but in reverse? I know we see job outlook, perspective outlooks, but I think it's more like how do we prepare for future industries that are considering our area and like starting the skill and pushing students towards those trainings so that they do show up here in green, as us filling the gap. So is there any like projections of like what the growth of industry in our particular region so that we can like see programs that would benefit and like trainings that would benefit those industries that are already coming in?
Uh, I think occupation snapshot could be really helpful in looking at that demand section of occupation snapshot, um, which
Yeah. So I feel
uh,
like the first thing you showed us sort of got to that, but I didn't know if there was like a broader sense of the the training, more, not necessarily the position, but the training required. Like what programs would they want us to train in or degrees would they want us our students to have? I don't know.
mm, um, we also do have another analytic called award gaps that shows some of the current gaps between the need for specific occupations and the number of graduates that are produced by post-secondary institutions within your region that might be helpful for looking at that. So we go into award gaps. I can show you that. So with award gaps, this looks at the number of graduates that are produced by post-secondary institutions within your region compared to the need for these occupations. So we can look at a specific occupation or occupation group if you want to, or you can use total all occupations. And then here on the left-hand side, there's a supply deficit. So these are different occupations where less graduates are produced than there's uh, a need for this occupation. Uh,
Oh yeah, this is exactly what I was trying to verbalize. That is awesome because I do think as people are undecided, I would like to try to push them towards something that I know might have high demand in the area. So that would really help to say like, here's what's coming up as a need.
Yeah, definitely. And then you can look at the total all occupations if you wanted to look just at the associate's degree group. For those, for example, that are wanting to get an associate's degree, you can also just look at those occupations as well. And things like industrial engineering technologies and technicians or architectural and civil drafters, dental hygienists, chemical technicians. These are all areas where there's a supply deficit, so that's a need for these occupations. When comparing the number of graduates that are produced to the demand for these occupations. And then on the right-hand side, there's a supply surplus, so there is more graduates that are produced by post-secondary institutions within your region than there is demand for these occupations. But this just could mean that students and graduates are going outside of the region to work too. But this can definitely show you a little bit more about the needs for these occupations, and you can also explore a little bit more about these occupations once you know the, once looking at this analytic too.
An associate's degree is like the lowest it goes. There's no ability to put in like specific certificates or licenses. Like we have a CNC machinist certificate. Could something like that be put in?
Uh, it wouldn't be within the occupation query type, but if you actually not within the word gaps analytic. Um, you can look at the some college no degree, which would be that certificate level, but you wouldn't be able to select a specific certificate here. You could look at a specific certificate in skill gaps and see what occupations are related that uh, might be related to that certification, but within a word gaps, you wouldn't be able to see it by certification. But any other questions with the word gaps? So I have been going through a lot of different analytics here. If you do want a lot of information about an occupation all at the same time, you can also go do these reports. So if we go into the occupation report, this just has a lot of information about um, this occupation. So if you wanted to look at the human resource assistants again, for example, or another specific occupation that you want to give more information to your students for, you can enter that occupation here. And you can also use the wage type as mean or median, and then also the file type here too, as a PDF or a Word document. On the left-hand side, you can also specify the sections of the report you want to include or not include. You can also move them around if you want to. You can also include your local information in the cover sheet if you want to. This can be really helpful if you are sharing this with students too. Then we can click run to run this. Now we'll go to the export section here, and it might take a little bit of time to run depending on what else is in the queue in front of your report. But while you're waiting for it to run, you don't have to stay on that page. So you can go to other analytics. You can even log off if you want to, and it will still run in the background for you. And once it's ready to download, there'll be a red dot or a red number next to this export, just letting you know it is ready to download. But while we're waiting for it to download, are there any questions so far? Uh, so just quickly highlighting for demographic profile, if you want to know some demographics about your region, you can use demographic profile. And that includes the age, gender, race breakdowns, as well as other demographic information or just information about residents within your region. And check out that demographic profile. Or if you want to map that information, you can also put it on maps too. I'll just quickly go into maps because it looks like it's still running. So if you wanted to look at where human resource assistants are working within your service region, we can select an occupation here, and as well as the region. I would look at it by the ZICTA levels or zip code tabulation areas to see which areas within your service region have the most human resource assistance. Then we can also add some labels here too, as a value or the name or both. So we can see that this area here has the most human resource assistance. So this area might be the area that students might be able to find more work too. So you can map data by occupation. You can also map demographic data, community data, unemployment rates, underemployment, award data, online job ads. You can map a lot of different information here in maps too. But any questions with maps? Okay, so it looks like this occupation report is ready to download now because there's a red dot number here in the export. So if I click on this, I can download it. And here within this occupation report, this is where we have a title page here and your logo information if you wanted to include it with your report. I also have occupation snapshot data here. And also these light bulb icons. So if you are wanting to share this with students that you're working with and they don't know what these terms mean, this can also provide a little bit more information about what these terms are. The employment by industry, so people who are working as human resource assistants, which industries they work in, wage data for this occupation, demographic information from demographic occupation demographic no, occupation diversity, post-secondary programs linked to this occupation, in this case the human resource assistant, and then also schools have awards or completion data for this program. Geographic distributions, where people work and where people live, and also a regional map, so where you're drawing the data from. And also some data notes here for sources of the data here too. And then also some frequently asked questions. So if you are wanting to share a lot of information about an occupation with students, this occupation report can also be helpful for sharing that information too. Any questions with the occupation report? So I do want to highlight the career concourse, which I had mentioned earlier, but is not available on this license, so I will switch licenses. I don't believe you have the career concourse right now, but if that is something that you are interested in, that is something that you could talk with your client relationship manager, Jason Roundtree, about, and how the cost of that as well. But here in Career Concourse, could be a student-facing version of JobsEQ data, so students can explore different careers. And this is customizable, so you can enter specific programs just for that are related to your school or within your school, as well as your region too. So students can explore it by program with the program section. And here you can just put in your specific programs that is part of the uh, setup for Career Concourse if you choose to do it. You can enter the programs here. But if we go into a specific program, uh, of human resources management. So we can enter a program here, and that will give you some related careers, which is also customizable. So you can use ours up to stack crosswalk, or if you wanted to, if you knew that there was a different career pathways from programs to some related careers, you can also customize it for that. You can find some related careers here as well as some job postings and entry level wages. And for any of these, like the human resource assistant, click on it. The students will be able to see a description of the occupation as well as wage information, education levels for people who are working, in this case, in the human resource assistant, employment, demand, job postings, the number of job postings, as well as specific job postings that are available. So within Career Concourse, you can explore it by program. You can also explore it by career cluster here too. So for example, if you wanted to look at advanced manufacturing and find the occupations linked or related to advanced manufacturing and fall in that career cluster. And you can explore more about, the students can explore more about any of these occupations too. Also built within Career Concourse, there's an assessments section, so you can look at exploring different careers using a careers assessment, for example, and it gives some different career options based on how they choose different questions. Also built within Career Concourse is this resume builder where they can create their own resume just by entering the different sections here, such as contact information, personal information, skills too. So Career Concourse is available as an additional feature if you do want to uh, use it. And that's where students can be able to explore on their own, looking at different careers or different programs. And that is the same day that it is available within JobsEQ, but that would be available for students too.
Thank you.
Any questions before we move on from Career Concourse? So that is just a quick rundown of Career Concourse. If that is something that you might be interested in, you can reach out to your client relationship manager, Jason Roundtree, and you can provide more information as well as the cost of it too. So I know I went through a lot of different information here, but definitely if you are looking at helping students, uh, things like occupation snapshot or the occupation profile, also occupation wages can be really helpful using the occupation report just to pull a lot of information at one time. That can also be helpful too. Um, but as I mentioned, you can also use the live chat if you do have questions as you are working in JobsEQ. And the chat hours are 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern time. But even if it's outside of those hours, you can still type in your questions and then we'll get back to you the next business day. So you can ask things like, where can I find this data? Is this data available? What do the terms mean in this report or this analytic? Or any other types of questions, and we can quickly help you get an answer to your question too. Um, but I know I went through a lot of information. Is there anything else you want to go over or any specific questions you have now? Or you just want to explore more on your own?
I'm ready to explore more on my own. I think that was fabulous. What about you, team? Anybody have any final questions or need to see anything else?
I'm good. It looks great.
Thanks for taking all my questions.
Yeah, those were great questions too. So definitely, if you have any questions as you are working in JobsEQ using that live chat feature, also using the question mark icon can be really helpful too. Or you
And
can
then
also
our, oh, sorry.
you can also search here too in the search bar, or you can also, if you want to, would like additional training sessions or small, shorter training sessions, we can also schedule those as well too.
Perfect. Thank you, Jessica. I was just going to let y'all know if we do have the internal support as well through Laura Campman. She is like our JobsEQ person on campus.
So I do have this recorded, so I will send this to our marketing person so they can put it on Chimera's YouTube channel as an unlisted video. And then once that link is available, I will send it out to you so you can view this too. But any other questions right now or anything else you want to go over? Okay, so if you do have any questions, feel free to reach out using the live chat. You can also reach out to me if you have any questions or if you'd like additional training sessions or shorter training sessions, we can also schedule those. Just reach out to me or your client relationship manager, Jason Roundtree, and we can set that up too.
Awesome. Thank you, Jessica.
You're
Hope you
welcome.
have a wonderful holiday season and look forward to connecting next year if we should need additional training.
Yeah, definitely. And feel free to reach out if you do have any questions in the meantime.
Okay.
Have a great rest of your day too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.